Hello and welcome to Comprehension Points Video Snark. If you came here because you thought that this was an audiobook, please stick around and maybe learn some reading and listening comprehension skills. I read books and discuss what went wrong and how they can possibly be fixed. I'm continuing my read through of Betrothed by Kiera Cass. Not the first video, go check out the others, links are posted below. Chapter 13. The family gets settled into their rooms. Once they've cleaned rooms and gotten their things unloaded from the carriages, Reed tells them that their next objective is to survive the dinner that night. If we prove Quentin to be in the wrong but have misjudged the people's willingness to revolt, then this will all be in vain. As I mentioned earlier, but at this point there's two people here, willful ignorance and the delusion that Quentin is somehow going to make people's lives better. I think that they'll find that most people don't want to be under the rule of a tyrant and only need some motivation in a group to join. Later, Scarlett helps Hollis get ready. As she does up Hollis's hair, she says that she had another memory of the attack on Block. Hollis confesses that she's uneasy about going to the dinner and says that maybe she should simply stay away. Scarlett talks it down for a minute, saying that there's no reason why a few races should keep Hollis away from tonight. Outside their room, they meet up with Eaton. Hollis again implies that she'd rather stay in her room all night than go down. Eaton is quick to point out that it's about time that this castle was filled with emotions rather than terror. In the hall, some random couple talks with Eaton for a while, and Eaton basically rehashes the tragedy all over again. And I know that this is what happens after a bunch of people die, but at the same time, this is a book. And quite frankly, I'm getting more than a little exhausted reading about everybody recounting the slaughter over and over and over and over, and they go down to the dining hall where Eaton makes a passing remark that maybe Valentina is pregnant. Hollis finally confesses about all the miscarriages that Valentina has suffered. Eaton obviously finds this interesting and rehashes that the only reason why the political marriage was happening right now is because Hadron isn't expected to live for much longer. Hollis watches Valentina for a while and notes how resigned to her fate the queen is. A bunch of soldiers run in and said that they'd come from the battlefield at the Kuro border, that it was a slaughter, and that they fled back to the capital to ask for reinforcements. A bunch of people start volunteering to go, but Quentin tells them to be quiet. He says that there will be no more bloodshed because of Jameson and demands to know where that girl is, which got a lot to say about that, but let's wait until he actually says something in the next chapter. Chapter 14. Anyway, most people know who he's talking about and turn to look at the Northcott table. Eaton helps Hollis to stand up on the table so that Quentin, and I quote, can get a good look at her. Perhaps we should send you back to Kuroa in a burial shroud, he commented offhandedly. Maybe the loss of his precious Hollis would finally teach him some respect. If he seriously thinks that murdering Kuroan citizens is going to help the war, he's more delusional than I thought. Hollis offers up that maybe Jameson is simply jealous over the size of Isolate. She suggests that Quentin should offer a plan around XYZ, and then not only would Jameson be grateful, but he would also be indebted, which is exactly what Quentin needs right now, somebody to stroke his oversized ego. Quentin says that nothing should interrupt the royal wedding celebrations after that. Hollis and Eaton make their escape, and they're barely out of the room when Hollis becomes physically ill. Eaton tells her that tomorrow is the tourney, and surely Hollis can stay out of trouble for one freaking day. Hollis changes the topic and asks that Eaton probably knew several soldiers during that battle. He tells her that it'll take a few days for word to get out about who was killed out there. Eaton goes on to say that while giving up part of the kingdom won't be popular, it'll be better than people sending their sons and fathers off to war and having them never return. He remarks that most commoners are barely scraping by, and that people like Jameson and Quentin use them as cannon fodder in order to help sate their itches of their overinflated egos. As they continue on to their quarters, Hollis asks why it is that he hates her so much. He insists that he doesn't hate her, but she reminds him that he literally once said to her face, "I hate you, Hollis," which, hard to come back from that. But right now, Eaton's feelings from this first meeting of Hollis have obviously changed quite a bit. He insists that she makes him laugh, which he points out that he's usually laughing at her expense. He sees her into his room and tells her that his father will likely want to regroup after that, but since she's likely in no condition to come out to the main sitting room, then he or Scarlett will tell her later. Eaton leaves her to her rest with the intent of going back down to dinner. Chapter 15. Scarlett later wakes Hollis to tell her that the dinner is over and that they're regrouping in the living room. Reed congratulates Hollis for having remained so calm under such extreme pressures, but Hollis is quick to brush it off. They go on and tell Hollis about how many people have come up to them upset over this suddenly swirling news about Silas's death. As Scarlett had mentioned previously, Silas was favored to take over the throne once Quentin was removed, and this leads them to talk about why the slaughter was so hushed up and isolated. They think that even Quentin knows that he's gone too far with it. Reed asks if anybody managed to get information from the others at the dinner. Scarlett says that she gave Lady So-and-so too many glasses of wine, but all she complained about was how Valentina hadn't yet had an heir. This prompts Hollis to tell the others about Valentina's miscarriages and how she thinks that the Queen is their most valuable ally, and is maddening that it took so long to come to a point that I figured out the second Hollis was in the Northcott estate. Reed says that if they can promise her safety, then Valentina can snoop through Quentin's personal items. With the tourney tomorrow, they'll likely be able to slip her a note telling her to meet Hollis later. Following this, the meeting breaks up and the others start to head off to bed. Eaton gives Hollis a piece of bread he snuck up from dinner. Meanwhile, Hollis goes to write her note to Valentina. Chapter 16. The next morning, Scarlett and Hollis stay behind so that Hollis can properly get dressed. They go down to the tourney fields where they are approached by a knight named Julian. He expresses his sympathy towards Scarlett and then asks for a token from her, so she gives him her handkerchief. It seems as though Hollis isn't the only one with romance brewing there. Hollis is only grateful that Scarlett was smiling a bit during the counter. However, she never once indicates that the reason why Scarlett hasn't been herself is mostly because her family was freaking murdered in front of her. And while the timeline is hazy, it can't be more than a month since that happened. Scarlett and everybody else is allowed to grieve. Holy guacamole on toast, Batman. It's like the author forgot that people are usually sad for a long time after somebody is brutally murdered or something. As Scarlett and Hollis go to take their seats with the rest of the family, they're a little put out by how many writers that there are, so many that this could literally be an all-day event. Hollis says that she'll pretend to faint, and Scarlett will have to go tend to her sick sister. As they get settled in, some random girls come over and ask if Hollis was really engaged to Jameson. However, the girls are apparently the author's attempt to write in some mean girls, and they scoff over the idea that anybody would willingly give up becoming a queen for the sake of marrying a commoner. And I get that it's hard to understand where Hollis is coming from simply from a 2-second conversation, but at the same time, considering how miserable that their own king is, I feel like they're in no position to talk about walking away from marrying into royalty, unless they're intending to be Quentin sympathizers or something. But considering what Valentina said about the other ladies of the court, I'm guessing that there's a reason why they're not married to Quentin instead. And were you first in line when Quentin was looking for a new bride? Oops, I spoke too soon. Go Hollis and pointing out their hypocrisy. The girls have nothing to say in response to that insanely valid question, and they quickly leave. Scarlett suggests that she and Hollis could leave, but Hollis insists that she's not going anywhere until the job is finished. Thanks for listening to my book Snark on YouTube. New videos are up every Monday, but stick around because I sometimes drop random videos on other days too. Just as a reminder, even if you can't financially support me, there are other ways to help me out. The first is watching this video as well as all my other videos. It's also important to like and subscribe. Finally, you can share this video with all of your friends so that they can help as well. If you're already caught up with all of my videos, you can go to Tumblr for my main book Snarks, always free and updated every morning. And if you've already read all of my main Snarks, then you can find even more Snark on my Patreon. You can access it for $1 a month. Members also get early access to my main Tumblr Snark. Special thanks to Dawn, Phoebe, and Nikki for supporting me on Patreon already. If you want to hear your name in my video next week, you either support me on Patreon or make a one-time donation. Do you like my Snarks so much that you want me to snark your writing? I do that too. For just $6 per chapter, I will tell you how awful that your writing is. But not to worry if you feel like you couldn't take the criticism. I also offer regular book editing as well, just 1 cent per word. You can contact me on any of my social media platforms if you have further questions. If you want to read some of the things that I've written, you can purchase my works on Amazon. I have a slew of erotic short stories and 2 full-length novels. I also frequently run flash sales on my stories, and if you aren't following me on any social media, you might want to do so just so you can know when I might be offering things for free. Links for everything will be posted below. See you next week, guys!